Hello today and welcome back. And in a day where we've had a lot of news, we now have the final 3 episodes for the docu-series from Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan. This one was full of revelations, so I cannot wait to discuss some highlights. So let's get straight into this. So thank you all for tuning in, and if you're here for the first time, welcome. So we are going to go in depth because this one was one for the books, I've got to say. And the level of revelations that we have gotten are so monumental. And it is a day of truth and a day of reckoning, I think, for those who have been dealing in a very underhanded way against the Sussexes. We have learned so much. And this is possibly a live reaction of those who are concerned as the docuseries came out. And if we could have a live feed into what people who have been called out are feeling as Volume 2 came out in the most broadcast voiceover, it would go like this. And now for a live reaction. And it would cut to this. Oh my gosh. Guys, I just had to do it. I had to do it. Please, I had to do it. Of course, this is just all in jest. There are quite a few heavy topics covered here, so that was just a good way to kind of lighten the mood. So yeah, let's go on. This was compelling, and I love the way it starts. We start off with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex talking about how they were planning to fly back to the UK for a visit in early 2020. So the Queen had told her grandson that she had no plans all week, so they could go and also stay for the night. So Meghan said this, quote, "So we were flying back from Vancouver straight to Heathrow, and right as we're getting on the plane, this urgent message comes through to H saying, quote, you are not allowed to go and see Her Majesty. Make sure that your principal is aware he cannot go and see her. She's busy. She has plans all week," end quote. So Prince Harry, of course, says that that's not what his grandmother, the Queen, had said to him. And when they had landed in the UK, he rang her up, basically saying he thought that she was free. And she says that she didn't know that she was busy. End quote. She says, "I've now been told I'm busy all week. I've actually been told I'm busy all week." And he was like, wow. So all this, of course, is the build up to their announcement that they were going to step back as senior working members. And we're going to get into, the dynamics of the relationships there, not only between the family members, but those who are, quote, the men in grey, and of course the media. So the Duchess of Sussex spoke quite warmly concerning the Queen herself. She spoke about her first engagement with the Queen, and Meghan said this, quote, "I treated her as my husband's grandma, and knowing that of course there has to be a different sense of propriety in public when you're sitting and having breakfast to just be able to talk. When we got into the car, in between engagements, she had a blanket and she put it over my knees, and we were sitting in this car with this blanket, and I thought, quote, I recognize and respect and see that you are the Queen, but in this moment, I'm so grateful that there is a grandmother figure because that feels like family," end quote. So Meghan spoke about the fact that she was close to her grandmother and that she had taken care of her when she was much older. And of course, Meghan was asked concerning her time with the Queen and what do they talk about. And Meghan didn't go into details, but she did say that it was such a good day that they laughed. And of course, the documentary played clips of them together having a laugh. And, the voiceover was one of the royal commentators saying that the Queen was in giggles because of what Meghan was sharing with her. So it's once again back to that basic foundation that Meghan, though we've heard the story and the kind of headlines that have gone on about her, quote, disrespecting the Queen. And I think a lot of us have heard that over and over again. That has been on rinse and repeat. The actual reality on the ground is that the Duchess of Sussex has tremendous respect for the Queen. You know, she had always tremendous admiration for her and respect for her. And Prince Harry as well, you know, he talked about the fact that he would never do anything to disrespect his grandmother. So this is laying this foundation, as I've said, to the lead up of them stepping back from their senior working roles. So Meghan touched on the fact that her estranged father, Thomas Markle, had been in the press. He had been talking about her. And of course, he also at some point started to criticize the royal family in the media. And Meghan said that she was so, you know, embarrassed and conscious of how it looked before the world. It was playing out like some kind of circus. And, you know, she was wondering what the royal family felt about this. And so she said that she reached out to the Queen and she asked her, what do you want me to do? So Meghan reveals that it was actually suggested to her by the Queen and I think another palace aide that was senior that she should write a letter to her father. So she said she went to, quote, great efforts to get the letter delivered discreetly. However, later she found out that it was indeed leaked to the press, with parts of the letter appearing in the mail on Sunday. Harry said the paper printed it, believing that the royal family would encourage Meghan not to sue. So this was a statement by Prince Harry in the documentary. He said, quote, people still scratching their heads going, how would the Mail have either the stupidity or whatever you call it to print a letter between a daughter and her father, he asked. Well, the answer is simple. They knew the family would encourage us not to sue, end quote. So we all know about the whole never complain, never explain. And I think Prince Harry and Meghan were expected just to follow suit, to suck it up and not make a big fuss about it. Of course, despite the fact that, of course, everyone could see that off the bat that was so wrong and unethical to do. So Prince Harry and Meghan, I think at that point got together and were like, enough is enough. So you could see the documentary pointing us in that direction, that was a turning point for them, where they decided to dig their heels in and stand for something. So while that was percolating over in the Sussex household, now the Duke and Duchess of Sussex talk about the fact that they had been having discussions with members of the royal family about how the press had been going after especially Meghan. And, you know, Prince Harry, of course, growing up in that environment, knew about all the briefing and the leaks. And he was trying to find a way to resolve it, to try and get some of the more senior members to just put in a word, if I can say that, and call off the dogs, if I can say that as well. Just basically talk to some of the editors and say, you know, just give Meghan a break. You know, she's trying her best. So, her friends, by the way, which was just amazing to see them standing up for Meghan in that documentary, was so great. They talk about how, you know, the whole fairy tale and the happily ever after started taking a turn. And they touch on the royal tour that they had in Australia, in New Zealand, and, you know, in that part of the world, and how everyone was just warming to Meghan. And we also hear that voiceover of Piers Morgan saying that she was becoming a rock star and it could become a potential problem, you know, upsetting the whole, you know, status quo and the system whereby the more senior members of the family were expected to bring in more interest. And there was Meghan, you know, she's just such a crowd puller and everyone loved her and Harry together. They were charismatic and everyone just wanted to go out and see them. And the friends who spoke at that moment talk and say that they saw that was when the shift happened. And I love the fact that the documentary just cites royal commentators talking about how Prince Harry and Meghan were becoming this, you know, force to be reckoned with, and how they were perhaps even eclipsing other members, and talking about how popular they had become. And of course now Meghan coming into this system and how popular she was and how she was connecting with people, it was perhaps seen as a threat. And they take this from royal commentators who were just talking about how the Sussexes were upsetting the balance of popularity. Prince Harry just hits the nail on the head and says that he saw a change. Then Prince Harry said this, quote, "The issue is when someone is marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who is born to do this, that upsets people. It shifts the balance," end quote. And he also talked about how they had this event at Buckingham Palace and all the senior members were there, and an outlet, I think it was the Telegraph, chose to put Meghan on the cover. And Meghan was like, oh my gosh. And of course, they draw that parallel with Princess Diana and how she, just captivated the world at that time, and how that upset the balance back in the day with Prince Charles and perhaps other members of the royal family at that time. So, wow, I was so amazed watching this, and it just gets better. So now we move forward in time to where now for sure Prince Harry and Meghan are trying to work out a deal where they can continue in their roles, but in a way that they are not beholden to that whole contractual system, which was basically infringing on their own boundaries. Press coverage that was so persistent against Meghan, and they wanted to go about, serving the Commonwealth countries in their roles, but take care of their mental health because of the barrage against Meghan and all she was going through. So as they're trying to work out this deal of where to live, it was interesting. Prince Harry talked about how they had planned perhaps to move to New Zealand or Canada or South Africa, and time again, it was something that came up, whether it was a leak. And now we get to the whole moment of the Sandringham summit when they had to preemptively on Instagram announce that they were stepping back from their senior working roles. And Meghan says more stepping back, not stepping down. And Prince Harry talks about the fact that he tried to set up meetings. So it's all coming to a head at that time. And by the way, before this, Prince Harry was told to commit his plan to writing, and he said he did not want to do that because of the leaks. We've covered that before. And of course, as he expected, his plans to step back with Meghan were leaked to the tabloids, and they had bullet points. So we know for sure it was someone on the inside. So he talks about sending an email to some of the senior private secretaries and telling them that he wanted a meeting, and it was rejected. And only when Meghan flew back to Canada, it was arranged. So he talks about the fact that in that meeting, he went in with the same proposal that he had made before and that had been made publicly, and which, of course, they were being pilloried for. We all know they blindsided the Queen was the basic tagline of most of those articles, the lead. And he says that it became very clear to him very quickly that the goal was not up for discussion. Him wanting to be half in and half out was a non-starter, and he says this quote, "It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me, and my father say things that simply weren't true, and my grandmother quietly sit there and sort of take it all in," end quote. So he says that he understood it from his family's perspective about how they were, entrenched in their ways, and anything that could be a threat to the monarchy, they would take on the advice of, the people who guide them in that institution. So he understood a lot of things that were going on. It's even strange, as much as he talked about how sad it was that there was now a wedge between him and his brother, that he felt that he still understood it because he knows that his brother's path is to be, a king, and he has to protect that as well, right? So he said this, it was very interesting, that after the Sandringham summit, where basically no ground was given, that the palace released a joint statement from Prince William and himself, pushing back on a media report that the rift between the brothers was allegedly caused by William's, quote, bullying. So Prince Harry says, "We couldn't believe it." He went on to say, quote, "No one had asked me permission to put my name to a statement like that. And I rang M and I told her, and she burst into a flood of tears because within 4 hours, they were happy to lie to protect my brother. And yet for 3 years, they were never willing to tell the truth to protect us," end quote. So, wow, isn't that amazing, that statement? And I think a lot of people covered it. And it was a statement basically released to quell any kind of negativity against Prince William. And yet the whole week, days before that, just for that time frame where Prince Harry was being accused in the press of blindsiding the Queen, no one said anything. No statement was put out. All of a sudden, it was just crickets. So isn't that so sad? I think that even the worst detractors of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex can look at this and say that something is wrong in that institution. So something needs to be changed and overhauled, and apologies need to be made because, as Prince Harry says, those talks had been going on extensively, and yet none stepped up for Prince Harry and Meghan to say, no, we've been having these talks. It would have just been one statement to quell all that negativity, but, you know, that's how it played out. And I think that it's so sad as they started to realize what was happening. Prince Harry talks about how he, now seeing what he saw, felt it was right to step them back. And also, by the way, it was quite interesting that Meghan points out something that a lot of us had seen. It was strange that she was not considered in that meeting. And even Prince Harry says he felt that it kind of was allowed to go ahead only when she went back to Canada. So, yeah, something that was going to shape her life. Discussions where she was a key part. She was not completely welcomed to take part in them. So that as well speaks to a whole other layer right there. And I think a lot of us can agree that that is just wrong. And Meghan's mom, by the way, she also spoke up about what she had seen happening. And she said that she felt helpless to protect Meghan. She teared up. That was so, so touching. And she talked about the fact that Meghan had confided in her about what she was going through. She felt she couldn't protect her, and she felt at the time that Harry could not protect her. Prince Harry says this, he was devastated, and he talked about the fact that he stepped them back. He has reiterated that over and over again. He also discussed the type of scenarios that have been put forth, that it's Meghan who's controlling him, that it is her that has him on a leash. I think he also talked about that image that has been going around where, you know, Meghan is basically leading him around and he has like a leash around his neck. He said that that was misogyny. So once again, throughout this whole docuseries, we have the theme of the fact that there is that symbiotic relationship between the palace and the press, the briefing that goes on against households. And this is something that has been reported on for years. So I would love to see the people who would be brazen enough to refute something that has been going on. And Harry talks about the fact that he and William had made a promise to each other that they would not do what he had seen happening, you know, in other royal households in their, quote, courts, and all the briefing against each other and trading stories against each other. I think he said that he and his brother had promised that they would not do that to one another. And I think he feels so hurt. I think we've seen images sometimes of Prince Harry looking at William, especially, you know, in these latter occasions where they're all together. And there's just this look he gives him. And I have been seeing that, and now I know what it is. And I've been trying to think about, what is that look? You know, it's a look of betrayal. It's a look of disbelief. These two were supposed to have each other's backs. So it's so strange. And another thing I'm going to point out, it's interesting that in this documentary, I think a lot of people thought that Harry would go hard after his dad. But it's very interesting. I think he's mentioned his dad quite positively. In fact, they talk about the fact that he was charming to Meghan, walking her down the aisle, helping them with the orchestra for the wedding, not even pushing back on the gospel choir. I think that they mention him only in like the past tense, especially when it comes to how, you know, he handled his own jealousy against Princess Diana, and also how, the briefing aspect of it, how it was just been allowed to go on and on. But for the most part, it's very interesting to me that King Charles has just not featured as people thought he would. And I think Prince Harry and Prince William, they need to sit down and talk. Because at the end of the day, these are true brothers and they know what they've told each other. Watching what happened to their own mother, Princess Diana, knowing the pitfalls, they saw it, they saw what she went through, they saw the briefing against her, they saw the talking heads trying to put her down, trying to plant stories about her. She basically paved the way for them. And apparently that should still be informing their lives and how they also bring up their kids. So if they made promises to each other, it would be wonderful to have that reconciliation. And I think that's the takeaway. I think Prince Harry is so hurt and betrayed by his brother. And that's what that look is that I've been seeing. So let's go on. They talk about the fact that now they just had to get out when they were in Canada, and their security was pulled as well. And after a while, just a godsend, Tyler Perry enters the picture. He's just such a godsend to them. And he gives them, of course, we all know, the place to stay. And it's so marvelous. I was cheering. Just warmed my heart to learn in the end that they chose to make him a godfather for their kid. So it was just the sweetest thing. And I love how you said that he would be honored to be Lilibet's godfather, but he said that he would only not want to take part in, the quote, all that. He thought perhaps he would be called over to the UK and have to take part in some kind of ceremony that he did not want, So I found that part funny as well. But I love the fact that he is truly like a bigger brother to them, and he prays for Harry and Meghan. I just say it's so wonderful to know that they have a family in the US right now, and a family in the friends that they have, Serena Williams, in Nacho, in Tyler Perry, of course, in, just the people who have come into their lives, in Abigail. So that was wonderful as well. So it's great to know that in this documentary, we had a lot of candid moments. They spoke quite openly and honestly about a lot of things. Meghan once again opened up about the fact that she miscarried. That was so touching to hear her, once again talking about that. So Meghan said that she talked about her miscarriage because she felt that in her moment of vulnerability and her not having to feel ashamed about it, that she could help other people. And she said that the good is being able to help other people with all the bad that had come. So Meghan chose to talk about that. So once again, they opened up about their interview with Oprah. And I loved the behind the scenes of watching Harry and Meghan, watching and the impact that it would have. And there's that scene where they're together. She's talking to Tyler Perry, I think it's over Zoom, and he's encouraging them. And you can see that relationship that they all have. Truly, Tyler Perry has taken those two under his wing. Such an amazing connection, divine connection. And it was interesting, at that time, a message came from Prince William to Harry. Now, of course, they didn't share the details, but of course, that was another interesting moment. It just felt so real. And of course, they also, once again, in this documentary touched on the litigation that Meghan had concerning her letter against Associated Newspapers. And now, once again, the briefing comes into play. And it was amazing to see them talking about Jason Knopf and how he suddenly just stepped up from the blues and decided to, volunteer some information. And that scene where they get the news that he's gonna do that, it was just such an interesting moment where Meghan says, why is he doing this? And they asked why it was being framed in the press as someone who had formerly worked for the Sussexes and not someone who was currently working for the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. And we heard a lot of commentators talking about how Jason Knopf was able to provide a witness statement in connection with the litigation against Associated Newspapers without his principal knowing. At that time, of course, that was Prince William. And I heard this from a royal commentator who sat down and said, I think it in fact wasn't one, might have been two of them or three, who said, there is no way that Jason Knopf would have been able to give that statement without the consent of his bosses. And his bosses at the time, of course, were, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. So that's just a whole can of worms right there. And of course, they said that at the end of the documentary that Jason Knopf said that the claims were false, that he had been asked to provide evidence by both the Duchess of Sussex and Associated Newspapers. But of course, Meghan's attorneys responded and said that the Duchess of Sussex disputed that claim and that Jason was not asked to provide a witness statement by the Duchess or her team. And they do not believe that he remained, quote, neutral by submitting a witness statement relied on by Associated Newspapers while working for the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. So that was their counter statement. So once again, this documentary has just been so weighty and has been so explosive in the fact that they were willing to go there. They were willing to say it and say it with their chests, and I commend Prince Harry and the Duchess of Sussex for doing so. A lot was wrong and they chose to do what they saw was right. The whole veil and shroud of silence that enables that kind of bullying, I think they said no. Of course, it was wrong for the Associated Newspapers through, the mail outlets to print that letter that Meghan wrote personally to Thomas Markle. And of course, it was wrong for certain segments of the media to come out and bully them. And it really, really touched me to see that there has been that filtering and trickling down of these negative articles to them as well. There's just some things they could not ignore. Especially when Archie was born, it was so sad to see Prince Harry talking about the picture of Archie being likened to a chimp, and also talking about how Meghan has been treated and all of the barrage of hatred against them, especially concerning the birth of Archie, and how certain segments of the press were so entitled and slighted by the fact that Meghan had chosen not to stand on the steps of the Lindo wing after giving birth. And she talks about the fact that she had given them alternatives, but that part was never talked about. They kept talking about that they couldn't block off certain parts of the street, and it all just kept on lending to that narrative that she was difficult and pushy. And they also talked about the bullying claims of how those just came out from the blue. So this documentary just talked about a lot, and I have a feeling that this is just the start, as Prince Harry said, a start of an amazing love story. It's great for them to just get these details out and to talk about it in this format where a lot more could be explored, and I just absolutely love this. So this has all been quite interesting to watch playing out. All I can say is let's continue praying for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And these are my predictions based off of this documentary. Of course, as of yet, Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace say that they will not comment. And this is what I believe moving forward. A couple of my predictions of any, quote, fallout that people might expect from this docuseries. My first prediction is that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will not lose their titles. As much as some quarters have been calling for that, it's not going to happen because, first and foremost, King Charles, who a lot of people I think expected would be, the target of this documentary, target in quotes, has kind of come out smelling not exactly like flowers, but didn't come out terribly impacted by the docuseries. In fact, he was like a side point, if I can say that. The focus, I think, more was on Prince William. So, as they say, these households brief against each other, and right now for King Charles to remove their titles would reflect badly on him. There's that whole racial aspect as well. Especially as this documentary has called out the fact that there was a lot of negative racial undertones in some of the coverage against the Duchess of Sussex. So, seeing as I feel that this documentary did not reflect negatively on Charles or Camilla, In fact, I don't even think she was mentioned, if so, in passing. I feel that he would not feel impacted enough to take any steps. 2 is if there is any love in the heart of Prince William towards his brother, if there's anything he can call back upon, it would be a wonderful outcome if he could reach out to his brother and have that heart-to-heart and not assume the whole palace line or stance, but talk to him like your brother, They understand each other. They've come up in that system. That would be my hope. Yeah, that would be my hope. My second prediction as well is that they've gone after some of these tabloid outlets with a lot of gusto. So, of course, it's not even a prediction. They are coming out swinging, but they've been called out so sufficiently. I think that they're just kind of walking on eggshells in a way, because we've seen the impact. We've seen the tears. We've seen Doria and Meghan's mom in tears over what Meghan has been put through. We've seen Meghan talking about it in tears, wondering why people have put such a target on her back. And she says, for what? How they have made her afraid about the threats that she has gotten that have kept her up at night, about the miscarriage that she had, what she has gone through, and that is so emotional. I teared up in that part. And someone has to really look within if that part did not touch them and truly question their own humanity, if they could see such a negative impact and just carry on like they have not done anything wrong. It's a moment for a lot of people to think online. It doesn't matter, if you're team Sussex or Cambridge. Why can't people adopt the stance? If you don't like someone or something, don't talk about them. Because they had almost made Meghan like a headline and not like a person, and she was trying to bring back that centering that she is a person. She feels the fear when she hears the threats. You could see how it impacted her, and that really, really touched a lot of people. We can just hope and pray for some real change, I feel. So there's just a lot that I can see on this. So share your thoughts on that as well. So these are a couple of highlights. Now let me know yours in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching, and a special thank you to those who support this channel financially. You just mean so much to me, and I want to give a shout out to a couple of you here. A special thank you to you right now, to Anna Thorne. Thank you so very much for your support and your love and your giving and your comments. I love all the ways that you engage. God bless you. And now a special thank you to Magdalene Jane O. Baptiste. Thank you so much for your support. I love you so very much. You are so dear. God bless you as well. And a special thank you to you, Arnold Sanders. Arnold, thank you. You are so, so kind and caring, and I appreciate your generous spirit. I want to say thank you. And a special thank you as well to you, Kristen Rowe. Kristen, you have been such a long-time supporter, and I want to say that I am so grateful to God for you. Thank you. And a special thank you right now to a couple of newer supporters of this channel. Thank you to Diana Animashawn. Thank you for choosing to come along with me on this YouTube journey. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you to you, Teresa Marhelko. Thank you for your love. I appreciate you so very much as well for your support that you give my work. God bless. Once again, thank you to all who like, comment, and share. Leave your thoughts and highlights on this below. Thank you all for watching. I love you all so very much. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a blessed one.